Welcome to our channel, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for your continued support to our channel. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the forthcoming by-elections in the country have really revealed the characters of our leaders, and they have also exposed William Samoei Ruto badly amidst the discussion about his popularity ahead of 2027. Now, the biggest discussion today is the dramatic pullout of Gideon Moi from the Baringo senatorial race. Now, sources indicate that William Ruto was so much wary about Gideon's entry into the Baringo senatorial race that he charged the NIS to try and find out how things were moving on in that area. And the latest information that the president had was that Gideon Moi was going to carry the day. Now, remember, the by elections that we are going to have are like a litmus, paper to William Ruto himself, because he's really facing a very bitter opposition led by Rigathi Gachagua, Kalonzo Musyoka, and the rest. And Rigathi wants to teach William Ruto a lesson. So William Ruto really wanted to ensure that even if he would lose other areas, but Baringo is like his home turf. And it was going to be very, very difficult for William Ruto to convince people that he's still very popular when he loses Baringo to Gideon Moi. So the NIS reported to him that things were not going the way he wanted, and so they had to craft a very urgent plan, and he decided to meet with Gideon Moi so that Gideon Moi withdraws from the race. Now, this did not go down well with the supporters of Gideon Moi because they had blocked all roads in Kabarnet, forcing even the UDA candidate to be flown by a chopper to present his certificates. And as they were waiting, sources indicate that Gideon Moi had named his prize, and they had, hatched a deal that forced William Ruto Now, the stakes were so high that the chairman of the IEBC himself, Erastus Ethekon, was forced to fly to that area to try and bring order and sanity and tranquility because it was so volatile.
We need peace, we need calm, we need tranquility in order to facilitate citizens to exercise their constitutional rights and to vote freely without any harassment, without intimidation, without violence, and without improper influence or bribery. So we expect the political parties and their candidates to observe the code of conduct which has been set there.
Now, there is a lot of debate around the dramatic meeting between William Ruto and Gideon Moi and how he finally decided that he was not going to contest. Yet people thought that this was the opportunity to revenge against William Ruto. Now, this has really taught us as Kenyans very many lessons that we really needed to understand. Politicians do not think like voters. As voters, you could look at something and you feel this is the moment. Then before you know it, the people whom you thought were enemies are friends, and those who are friends all of a sudden become enemies. And this by-election or these by-elections have really treated us to some theatrics. So there's a lot of drama. But I want us to look at one thing. What are the lessons that we learn from the dramatic meeting between William Ruto and Gideon Moi? Because this was unexpected. Others say they are not shocked. By the way, are you surprised at what happened? And I want us to look at lessons that we need to learn, because ahead of 2027, we should be wary and very cautious about our politicians. Otherwise, tutaachwa kwa mataa. Kindly subscribe to our channel if you're watching us for the first time. When you do, please click the notification bell and like our videos, ladies and gentlemen. I have realized that William Ruto is busy buying out politicians in the Rift Valley. He wants to ensure that as he approaches 2027, hakutakuwa na madoadoa pale Rift Valley. Because just recently, we saw, Buzeki Bundotich, a man who has been a fierce critic of William Samoei Ruto, a man who refused to join William Ruto, and he said he can never join the UDA. Recently, he joined UDA, telling you that maybe some people are saying that maybe Bundotich went there because that's the only way he can rise to power. He can win the Uasin Gishu gubernatorial race. But it also tells you that William Ruto is not sleeping. Emissaries are being sent, day and night to try and talk to those who are seem to be critics and opponents and competitors. Because William Ruto wants to ensure that he locks Rift Valley ahead of 2027. In fact, questions are now being asked whether Alfred Keter is on his way. Now that Bundotich joined the UDA and the former Baringo senator withdrew from the race, then something could be cooking. So he's busy galvanizing Rift Valley. He wants to ensure that as he approaches 2027, he's going to have Rift Valley as a team. I don't know what to think, but I think William Ruto is busy looking for leaders, dissenting views from the Rift Valley. Number two, away from the praises that William Ruto is popular, that 2027 is going to be an obvious thing that is going to win, I don't think so. I think the president is very unpopular. Because if he's so worried about his backyard that it forces him to buy an opponent, then it means he's not popular. Because if William Ruto was that popular, in Baringo, he would have swept it without much headache. But he realized that Gideon Moi was becoming a threat, and this was going to weaken his support. It was going to be a clear message. You can imagine if he had allowed Gideon Moi to go and Gideon subsequently wins that election, then Wamunyoro begins saying, ningeliwaambia huyu mtu atakikani hata kwake. So he's not as popular as we think. That is why he was forced to buy out, Gideon Moi. Understand that the stakes were high, and Gideon Moi had to name his prize. So let us not be cheated that the president is so popular that is going to sweep in 2027. Things are tight. Vindu vichenjanga. Kwa ground, vitu ni different because he's the president of the country and he owns UDA. Rift Valley should be a UDA zone. Yet a small party like Kanu is now small, it was once a very big party. A small party like Kanu shakes him, forces him to sit down to negotiate. Then I don't think William Ruto is such popular. I think the president can be beaten in 2027. He can be forced to go back home if it's not about buying out people and negotiating for positions. I don't think it's very popular. Number three, I want us to understand that politicians are very selfish. They will use you. You can imagine the supporters of Gideon Moi were waiting for him, and then he fails to appear to present his papers. Why? Because they sat down, they negotiated, he named his prize, and I think it was about the Moi businesses, how they should be protected, and such kind of things. So the first thing that a politician will do is to think of himself and the family, then friends, then you who are the most important factor in an election come last. That was Gideon Moi. He sat there and his supporters were very, very hopeful and they had faith that this time around they were going to annihilate UDA in Baringo. Yet Gideon Moi makes a U-turn and decides to withdraw from the race. Politicians will always think about themselves, not you. You are at the bottom of the political pyramid, yet you're the most important person. If William Ruto had the interest of his people at heart, he wouldn't have joined. It's like joining UDA because you drop from the race, you're supporting the UDA candidate against the chagrin of your people, then it means you're very selfish. They never think about you, and we need to think about this. As you kill each other and fight on behalf of the politicians, they negotiate for power, they do businesses together. We need to learn. Come on, guys. And then, lastly, ladies and gentlemen, William Ruto's dirty game ahead of 2027 have been exposed because anyone who challenges him will be bought, will be compromised. You will be called and told, name your price. And then that's how you're gone. Some of them will drop out at the last minute when nominations have begun, when the IEBC had closed the nomination. And so some of these candidates who you believe in will leave you hanging. That is why you really need to vet the candidates that you want to vote for. Otherwise, unasema pale chando tosha in some county or in some constituency or some ward, then we work very closely with the government or with State House, and the NIS is busy following. So you are either intimidated or you are compromised, and before you know it, at the last minute, have dropped out, have withdrawn from the race, and it will be too late. Maybe at some moment when we are just approaching elections, this is going to be the dirty tricks ahead of 2027. And we really need to be very, very careful. Scrutinize your candidates. And I'm just looking at this and I'm thinking the dynasties whom Ruto really bashed in 2027, in 2022, are finally with him. Mzee ako na yeye. And the ODM, brigades have said they are going to support Ruto. Leave alone shenanigans like, ODM watasimamisha Ruto akuna, it's too late for them. Watasupport Ruto. Now KANU. And there are mixed, signals from Uhuru himself. It seems he's also supporting William Ruto through proxies, through those candidates. So there seems to be a possibility that the dynasties are now back. Why? William Ruto is a dynasty himself. Do you think William Ruto can still campaign on that platform of a hustler? It cannot. It cannot happen. It won't succeed. So, ladies and gentlemen, those are the lessons that we learn. But the NIS report that Ruto received was so scary. He knew he was going to lose, and by losing Baringo, it was going to threaten his re-election in 2027. He's living in a shaky ground, in a very precarious moment, and he does not want to leave anything to chances. For the united opposition, two things must happen. You must remain united. You must ensure that there are no spy masters around, Ruto spies, because they will be there to disintegrate that opposition. William Ruto is very cunning. I know Rigathi Gachagua is his match, but let that united opposition be very, very careful. Otherwise, it will be too little, too late for them. But William Ruto is not popular. It tells you why he had to call Gideon Moi to negotiate for power. It tells you he's not all that popular. Kenyans are tired, and they have a date with the UDA party come 2027. That's my take.